Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Eardley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Hello there, welcome to episode 19 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm so excited to have you here. My name is Catherine Eardley and I am your host as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club. The Resilient Retail Club is my membership group for creative product businesses. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com. And just to say as well, before we jump into this week's episode, that this week the episode will be going out on Thursday, the 3rd of December. And Friday, the 4th of December, I'm going to be announcing a very special Small Business Saturday discount on the Resilient Retail Club. If you want to find out more, make sure you're on my mailing list. If you're not already, the best place to go to get on that mailing list is resilientretailclub.com/free stuff. And at the bottom, there's a place for you to pop your email address in. And you'll not only get access to my 3 free toolkits, but you will also be able to join my mailing list and find out more about my special offer. So let's jump into this topic, which is all about driving traffic to your website. Now, this is a pretty big, meaty topic, which could probably have a few episodes just to itself, but it's one of the questions that I get asked most frequently, either within the Resilient Retail Club by the members or when I'm talking to other small businesses. But one of the things that comes up is often about how do I drive traffic to my website? Now, it could be that you've just started and you are literally there with your brand new website trying to work out how to send people to it. Or you may be up and running for a while and just thinking to yourself, you just want to get a little bit more traffic, you're going to get a lot more traffic to your website. So this is a very common question that comes up. And going back to those toolkits, if you go to resilientretailclub.com/toolkits, there is a Start Your Business Toolkit and there's a 30-page PDF ebook all about this subject. So if you want to know more detail after today's episode, then definitely go check those out. But let's dive in with a few of the key points. So why is this so important? Obviously, we know driving traffic to your website is the first step towards getting a sale. And so it's often the one that people get really fixated on. If you want to hear me talk in a little bit more detail about the sales funnel or the customer journey that your customer goes on, then definitely check out, for example, episode 8, 4 ways to grow your sales for your creative product business. I go into this theory in more detail. But basically, getting people to come to your website is the very first step in getting them to buy from you. So before we dive into the various different ways you can drive traffic, there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Certainly before you put any money into driving traffic to your website, you want to make sure that your website is doing its job. And by that, I mean you want to check its conversion rate. So the conversion rate is the number of people who buy divided by the number of people who have visited. So let's say you have 100 people visit your website over a certain period of time and only one person buys, then you've got a 1% conversion rate. Ideally, you want to be at around a 2% conversion rate before you start driving traffic. If that sounds really low, then generally speaking, conversion rates are pretty low for online selling. They're around 2%. There are definitely websites I've seen with really engaged customers that may be closer to the 4 or 5%. The other thing to note as well is that your conversion rate will often fluctuate. So if you have a big launch, your conversion rate might go up. And then if you have a period of time where you don't have a lot of newness, it could go down again. So it's not a fixed thing. So you want to look at an average of your conversion rate over a certain period of time, preferably at least a month, if not 3 months, to get a general sense of how it's doing. If you're not at that 1% to 2% range, I would suggest that you spend some time going through your website, looking at ways you can improve your conversion before you start putting any major effort into driving the traffic, because it's like having a leaky bucket. If you're pouring traffic into your website, but it's not converting, then you're putting in a lot of effort for not much return. So you want to make sure you've done everything that you can for conversion. Conversion's a whole other big topic. I'm not going to go into it in a huge amount of detail in this episode. There is more detail in the ebook if you want to get that from resilientretailclub.com/toolkits under the Start Your Business Toolkit. But the thing I would just say about conversion is there's two elements to it. There's the technical piece, which is about how well is your website set up to actually move people through it, which most modern websites, especially if you're on something like Shopify, which is designed for e-commerce, they are set up to maximize conversion, generally speaking. But then there's also this element about conversion, which is, do you have the products on your website that your customer wants? That's a good question to ask yourself. Sometimes people can tie themselves in knots about conversion, but actually it comes down to, is the product something that the customer really wants? If you know that it is, then there may be other elements for you to look at in conversion. And then the second point that I wanted to make before we go into all of the different ways that you can drive traffic to your website is that we think about all traffic being equal. So when people say to me, I want to have more visitors to my website, actually, you need to dig a little deeper because there are different types of traffic. Just as in a physical store, you're going to have people who are there, they are determined, they have an intention to buy. And then you're going to have the people who are browsing and having a wander around. And the way that I like to think about this is that if you have somebody who has come across you on social media, and they've seen a picture of your product while they're in their sort of social mode, and then they've gone over to your website to have a look, they might not really be in the mood for buying. They may not be necessarily in the frame of mind. They're just kind of interested, so they're having a look. And then you've got the people who maybe Googled, did a search for something specifically that you sell and have found your website that way. They are there with an intention to buy. Also, there is higher converting traffic, for example, that comes from your emails. So if you send an email to somebody and they then click through that to your website, they convert at general around 4%. So that's higher converting traffic. So what I just wanted to say was, rather than thinking about the top line number of people who are visiting, start to think about the fact that not all traffic is the same. So for example, Pinterest is a good example. Pinterest drives a lot of traffic to some websites. As a very broad brush general rule, Pinterest traffic tends to be lower converting because people are on Pinterest to kind of have a browse around in general. Same with social media traffic. What I want you to take away from this really is to understand that not all traffic is created equal. So it's not just about a top line number necessarily. Okay, so how do you drive traffic to your website? Again, when I think about what I want you to take away from this episode, it's really about the fact that there are lots of different ways for you to do this. If you are focusing on one way and one way only, for example, Instagram, you're missing out on the fact that there are probably about 7 or 8 different ways for you to be driving traffic to your website. And if you focus, again, going back to the idea that social media is lower converting, if you focus heavily on Instagram at the detriment to everything else, and it's taking up all your time and your effort and your mental space, and you're not doing all of these other things, it's worth having a rethink about the way that you're spending your time and to see if there's a different way that you can do it, or a different way to carve up your time to allow you to do some of these other things. So what are some of the fundamental ways? So what I'm going to start off with is kind of what I would call the basic hygiene, if you like, for your business. And these are some of the things that, again, if you're not doing them, then try and think about how you can fit these into your schedule. The first thing is SEO, search engine optimization. I've talked about this on previous episodes, but really just to stress that search engine optimization is a way of getting high quality, higher converting traffic to your website. It's not a quick fix. It is not something that you're going to do immediately and then all of a sudden that's it, you're getting loads of traffic. It's something that will build up over time. Again, going back to this idea that not all traffic is created equal, this traffic is going to come to you from people who are looking for what you've got. And also when it's done correctly, another reason that I think SEO works really well is that it works for you all day and night. So with Instagram, for example, you'll put up a post and it very quickly, it will lose visibility because the algorithm definitely favors fresher content. Whereas SEO, if it's something that you work on consistently over time, then you will be able to get to the point where, even when you're asleep, this is the dream, right? That when you're sleeping, that people could be searching for your website and finding it. SEO is really critical. And what I would suggest is, and I think I've touched on this before as well, is this idea of long tail keywords. Long tail keywords are when somebody is looking for something very specific. So, for example, Christmas shopping, I have been looking for things like UK independent brand Christmas vegan hampers. It's an example of something I might be searching for. Or looking for, randomly, one that I was looking for, somebody had asked for 365-day notebook gratitude journal. So these are very specific things that I'm looking for. And while it probably is not a large volume, in fact, incredibly, 50% of all searches that happen on the internet are happening for the very first time. So 50% of the time that people are searching for something in Google, it's never been searched for before. So it may not be that there's much volume on 365 days notebooks, gratitude journals, but when I looked for that, when I searched for that, then if I found it and it was what I wanted, then the likelihood of me purchasing was much, much higher. What am I trying to say? Really is that SEO, understanding SEO, or making sure you've got the basics of SEO covered, is like basic hygiene for your business, because over 50% of purchases online, I know I've quoted this fact before, over 50% of purchases that happen online happen as a result of a Google search. Making sure that you have your website set up so people can find it, who can search for these very specific terms, is going to help you in the long run. Not short term, but in the long run. What it comes down to with SEO is that you have to make a choice. Learn it yourself, and there are courses out there available, specifically those targeted at small creative businesses, that will help you learn and understand how to do your own SEO. There are plugins and services as well, so that you can pay an automated service to crawl your website and to look for very specific actions that you can take to improve your SEO. Those are fairly low cost alternative. Or you can pay someone to do it for you, which is more expensive. But if it's something that you really, really struggle with and you just know that you're just never going to get it done unless somebody else does it, then that is an option. So there are different ways of getting your SEO done. Again, what I want you to take away from this is basic hygiene. If you're talking about sending people to your website, you want to make sure that SEO is part of your overall strategy. Okay, so the second element of what I would call the basic hygiene techniques to send people to your website is email marketing. I'm very, very passionate about small business, product businesses using email marketing because I think it's underutilized and the results can be really quite extraordinary. Going back to this idea of the customer journey or the sales funnel, nobody is more likely to buy from you than someone who's already bought from you. And the second most likely people to buy from you are people who've expressed a distinct interest in your products previously. So that means the people most likely to buy from you in the whole world are your previous customers and the people who like you enough to have put their email address into your website. Email marketing is basically speaking to the people most likely to buy from you. So again, if you say, I don't have time to do email marketing because Instagram's taking up so much time, think about that fact that the emails that you send are the most likely, almost the most likely activities you can do in your business to make money, really. And I've certainly seen businesses that if you looked at their social media presence, you wouldn't necessarily have an idea of how big of a business they are. And the reason for that is because they are really using their email marketing in a very sensible way. The other thing about email marketing as well is that it really amplifies any other efforts that you're putting into the business. So if you're working on your SEO and you're getting people to sign up to come to your website and they're purchasing from you, or they're signing up to your email list, for example, if you're then emailing them on a regular basis, you're just getting more from the people who you've worked so hard to attract. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. Again, a big topic. All of these are really big topics. But just to say that with email marketing, keep it simple. You don't have to write War and Peace every time. In fact, some of the most effective emails are simply a very simple format that you can use on a weekly basis. Again, all of these tactics I talk about in a lot more detail as well within the Grow Your Sales course within the Resilient Retail Club. So if any members are listening and want to know a little bit more in detail, then do go ahead and take a look at those modules. A final piece that I want to talk about within the basic hygiene is content marketing. So content marketing is creating unique content that your audience will enjoy. For example, a blog post about a product that will entertain and interest your audience is content marketing. Content marketing works really, really well with SEO as well because Google likes fresh content. It's also an opportunity that if people are landing on your website and they don't know anything about you, then they've got a chance to read through some content that you've created that people can then find out a bit more about you as a business owner and a little bit more about your products. The other thing about content marketing is that if you are going to go to the trouble of doing something like writing a blog, which incidentally doesn't have to be a huge undertaking either. It could be 300, 500 words, a quick product of the week photo, and then some description. If you are going to the trouble of creating a larger, longer form piece of content like this, then you should be able to use that in lots of different ways. You should be able to share that on social media. You should be able to include that in your email marketing. So it should be a question of having lots of different things that you can do with this content if you're going to take the time to create it. What are my top tips for content marketing? Again, if you are a member of the Resilient Retail Club, then within Grow Your Sales, there's a big long list of ideas. What it's about is just what extra detail can you give in a slightly longer form for your customers, and how do you help it showcase your products? You could have, as I said, a product of the week blog. You could have a gift guide where you explain why each one of your products is a perfect gift for a certain kind of person. So there's lots of different things that you can do with your blogs. They can be talking about your values, they can be talking about you as the business owner, or they can be giving useful information like how to look after your products, how to care for them. There's lots of different options. Again, what I would bring it back to is if it's going to be a question of you spend 3 days writing a giant long blog post and then you'd never do it again, that is not generally very helpful. Consistency works really well. So set yourself a schedule that you think you can stick to, even if it's once a month to write a 300-word blog. But just start doing it because, again, Google likes the fresh content. You can use it in lots of different places, and it will give people another reason to come to your website as well, apart from to look at your products. The next piece that I want to talk about is really building your brand awareness. And again, building brand awareness is not a short-term strategy. In fact, this is the issue, is none of these are really short-term strategies. So when I talk about all of these different tactics, I do think you have to, the ones with that are the basic hygiene, I would say that you want to get those into place if you don't have them. These other ones about boosting brand awareness, I would choose one, maybe two, and focus in on them. And a story that someone told me a while ago when I started my business, which still sticks with me, is if they said to me, if you were planning on learning an instrument, then you wouldn't say, right, I'm going to learn the piano, the flute, and the violin all at the same time. You'd pick one and you'd practice it. And I do think a lot of the techniques that we're going to talk about are like learning a new skill. As small business owners, we have to wear a huge number of different hats. So don't be surprised that it can feel quite arduous to learn all of these different skills. Why not focus in on one, maybe two, and see how far you can take it? The first one of these is social media marketing. Talked a lot about this previously. It is lower converting traffic. It's also a hugely time consuming one to do as well. So Again, with social media, what I would suggest is you pick a platform to start, focus on the one where your customer is most likely to be, and then really think about ways that you can control the amount of time that you spend on there, and think about the ways that you can get really clear on what you're actually trying to say. Keep thinking about what's actually working. How often are you checking your stats? How often are you checking into all of the information that you're getting from these social media platforms? And how often are you just, for want of a better expression, giving yourself a kick up the bum with your content? What I find is that sometimes I get into a bit of a rhythm with content and I work out what works, and then it gets a bit stale, and every so often I have to give myself a kick up the bum. Just try something different. Just throw it out there and see what happens. If you want to know more about selling on social media, if it's something that you find really tricky, then there is episode 9 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan goes into selling on social media in a lot more detail. One of the second elements of thinking about growing your brand awareness, one of my favorite methods is about partnerships or collaborations, finding people who are complementary, non-competitive. It can be great to find those on social media. So find people who are a similar size to you. So they're not doing you a favor. It's more about a reciprocal arrangement where they're getting as much out of it as you are. Finding those people and then doing giveaways or other joint ventures or even collaborations, for example, they're all really, really fantastic ways for you to get more people in front of your business and for you to get more people to come to your website. So that would be another one. Again, and actually some of those can have fairly immediate reactions. If you share with somebody who really shares the same audience as you and who love your products, you can see reaction to collaborations pretty quickly. But it's definitely something worth thinking about, or even having a strategy that you're going to have a certain number per month in order to keep growing your business and getting it in front of more people. Another element of growing your brand awareness is thinking about your PR strategy. So a PR strategy is really about you getting your business and your products out there to all of the various different forms of media. And it's a really broad term. It could cover everything from going for awards to doing guest blogging to being on podcasts, but it's basically about getting the word out there about your business. There's lots of really, really helpful organizations and groups that can help you if you are looking to do your own PR. People like PR Dispatch, for example, which is an organization where you can get press contacts, you pay a monthly fee and you get press contact information, really helpful, and lots of training about how to do your PR. There's people like PR Collective with Fiona Minute from Boss Your PR. Again, a membership with a focus on PR for small businesses. So there's lots and lots of information out there for you, lots of ways that you can get reasonably low cost help with your PR. I would say that if you're first starting out, you may get approached by people who are offering to do your PR or PR agencies. My feeling is a little bit like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, because often these big organizations will have fairly hefty monthly fees, and it's not necessarily going to be tailored perfectly for a small business. So I would look into ways that you can do it yourself at a much lower cost to begin with. But again, it's kind of like the SEO thing. You either got to teach yourself how to do it, whether it's through books or courses. You've either got to do a hybrid model, something like a membership where you're getting some help, but you're still doing the do yourself. The only difference I'd say between SEO and PR is that with SEO, it is so vital. It may be worth your while paying someone to do your SEO at the very beginning. But I would say with PR, my experience has been, even with the clients I've had who've paid PR agencies to do their PR, it's always worked out more cost effective for them to be in a membership or something like that. And then other ways that you can get out there and get your name out there is actually looking into getting your products into retailers, into physical retailers, which would be things like wholesale, or actually just expanding your selling channels. So if you're currently selling through your own website, for example, then getting yourself into wholesale where you've got a clear link back to your website address, that could be another way to drive traffic to your website. Again, not a short-term thing, but it can work quite well. for you to get more eyes on your business and to boost your brand awareness. And then the final way that I want to talk about very briefly about driving traffic to your website is about paying for that traffic. So there are lots of varieties of paid traffic. There's social media ads, there's paid search, there's influencers, there's sponsored content, although that generally is rarely worth the money. So there's lots and lots of different ways that you can actually pay to get traffic. Social media ads is one of the most commonly used tools. This potentially could be a shorter term solution. Again, the key thing I would say about paid traffic is, number one, you absolutely have to make sure that your website's converting before you go ahead, that you feel really clear about your message. Basically, paid traffic is like having a megaphone. So you're saying the same thing, but you're saying it louder and to more people. So it can work incredibly well. But the fundamentals, if your organic traffic isn't converting, or if you feel like you don't really have your messaging straight, then it may be tricky for you to get much traction with your paid advertising. The other thing I would say about paid advertising is that it's really a question of doing it approaching it in a strategic way. So you can absolutely see some great results, but if you do it in a very scattergun way, then it probably won't work, and it can be a very easy way to burn through money quickly. So again, there are lots of organizations and training courses and various different people who can help you, and it's definitely something you may well want to explore later on. The other thing I would say as well is that if you think about the bigger retailers, then all of them are using every single one of these elements. None of them are relying, for example, just on their social media. They will all be having email marketing campaigns, looking at their content. They will be making sure their SEO is great. They will be using paid traffic, as well as using social media, as well as conducting PR. So a big organization finds their way of doing all of these different things. So that's why I just wanted to stress that if you're thinking about driving traffic to your website, it's a multifaceted approach. And sometimes, a year-long, 2-year project sometimes to really get your traffic up. If you feel like you're struggling, just ask yourself, are you looking at all of the different elements, or are you focusing in on only one element? And ask yourself as well, are you focusing on an element that maybe has a lower chance of actually converting? So are you, for example, putting all of your eggs into that social media basket? I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you go to resilientretailclub.com/toolkits, go to the Start Your Business Toolkit, and you can get the ebook, which has got a lot more detail about driving traffic to your website. Also, again, if you are not already on my mailing list, then go to resilientretailclub.com/free stuff. And at the bottom there, you can hop onto the mailing list. Actually, that will give you access to all 3 toolkits if you want. So it might be a great thing to do, even if you are just after the ebook. Then you will also be hearing about my special offer for joining the Resilient Retail Club, which I am announcing tomorrow. As always, I absolutely love to see where you are when you're watching. So do tag me at Resilient Retail Club on Instagram. Show me where you are when you're tuning in. If you have a minute to rate and review, especially in iTunes, it really helps me get the podcast out to more people. And of course, if you subscribe, then you will be one of the first to know when I release new episodes. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions, or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.